Could not go live. Something went wrong when trying to go live. All right, let's try again. Could not go live. Something went wrong when trying to go live.
Oh, no. I can hear you. I can see you saying could not go live on Facebook.
Oh, so I'm live?
Oh, yeah. It looks like you are. That's you.
But it's not moving.
It is.
Oh, hi, Facebook. Hi, Tactical Imagination Club. It is Amy here. Crowdcast, which is the platform that I am bringing you the Imaginauts from, is telling me that I can't go live. However, apparently I am visible on Facebook. Is that still true, Julie?
Yes, but I can't hear you.
But you can't hear me. If anyone is watching on Facebook, could you please comment and let me know if you can hear me and see me? That would be excellent. This is very odd.
Yeah, Julia Farwell said. She said, yeah.
Yep, you can hear me and see me? Okay, I'm going to trust. Are you plugged in? You have your volume up and stuff like that? Okay. So I am going to trust that this is working technically. And I'm going to start over here and say, hello, Tactical Imagination Club. Welcome to the Imaginauts Episode 6 with my dear friend, Jenn McCabe, one of the people who inspires me and excites me on a daily basis with her approach to business, with her approach to world changing and culture changing, with her approach to visual imagery, and cultivating a beautiful, authentic, unusual, very beautifully organized visual language for her business, and really integrating that creative process into her business on a daily basis. So I've been really excited to bring Jenn and her work to you. Many of you know her. She's a longtime member of the Tactical Imagination Club. She's participated in each of the visual storytelling workshops to various degrees. And I'm just so excited to have her on the show. So Jenn, I'm going to invite you up on screen so you can introduce yourself. All right, come on in, Jenn. I'll give her a second to find her way here. And there she is, Jenn McCabe.
Hey there.
Hello.
Today because the applause machine is home.
Yeah. The applause machine is home with my son, Julian, who finally busted me for stealing his favorite toy week after week. Obviously, if anyone needs to get like a holiday present for me, I'll give you my address. You can send me a noise machine. I could also buy it for myself, I realized.
Yeah, it might
Done
be.
with that Christmas present. Welcome, Jenn. Yay. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here too.
So let's start with you letting people know some about who you are and what you do. Talk about your work.
So I think we've been struggling with this on my end for copy and everything else, but I think the simplest way to describe what I do is that when we encounter a difference we're not okay with, anything that makes us feel like off balance, unwell, tense, or like full on opposition, hell no, we end up doing one of two things. We avoid or we compromise. We avoid the person or the relationship, or even go as far as to end relating, or we compromise and give up some part of ourselves, something that we want, something that we care about. And for leaders in particular, like doing that means that's where your vision cannot go. In those places where you feel like that and you react that way, vision is off the table. And so I teach people a fundamental way to relate in the world that's different from how we are now, that allows you to navigate that paradox of like being in maybe opposition with to someone or with someone and still maintaining yourself and not giving up who you are or what you care about. And it's pretty, I love it. I really, obviously, but my clients often say that one, they learn the skills. It's a lot like coming home to themselves, and their world opens up at the same time, meaning that they can kind of go wherever they choose and are no longer limited by like the way people are reacting or showing up or anything like that. So it's a complete reorganizing of how you relate in the world and how you show up, particularly around difficult situations.
And as I was listening to you talk, I was remembering also one of the things as I was first getting to know you that excited me a lot was the stuff that you talked about around the culture of contempt, or like some of the larger societal cultural things that happen as a result of the screwy ways that we relate or don't relate around difference.
Pretty wicked.
And I really, that's pretty weird. You can kind of see it everywhere. Yeah. So what about, who do you work with? Like what kind of people come to you to do this work?
You know, I do not have a typical customer profile. I've abandoned trying to do that because it just doesn't work. I think fundamentally there are people who are building businesses or building families. They lead communities or they lead organizations. Like they kind of cut across that spectrum, but what they have in common is that they're there for something greater than themselves. And when faced with a difficult challenge, they're going to consistently choose courage over cowardice, like consistently do the work to walk through whatever it is they're facing. And, you know, it's funny. We had the retreat here, I think earlier in the year at my house. And we had, on the one hand, I had a Navy captain sitting on one end of the couch. And on the other hand, I had this queer feminist coach. And that literally encompasses who the gamut of kind of who my folks are. And I love that because it's like, we're here for the differences. We're not here for the same old, and all of us agreeing or thinking the same way, because that's when your vision kind of gets stale and stagnant and essentially dies. And that's also, it's not how the world works, right? So relating to those differences, even when they're sitting on opposite ends of the couch, is everything. But I do love, of course, I love my clients. They're amazing human beings, and they're really fun too. So,
I know. That's one thing that's so stood out for me talking to you over the last couple of years is how much fun you're having with your folks. So you, like, I think many people in the Tactical Imagination Club do work that is really meaning driven and has vision and has, you know, a culture changing kind of mission and is not necessarily, at least on first glance, like immediately applicable to like an obvious kind of visual language. So I think there's a lot of people who have that, like, how on earth do I translate these, you know, kind of abstract or seemingly abstract concepts to something visual? So much of it has to do with the unnameable things that happen between people in a relationship and in a conversation and feelings. And so let's start talking about how you've done it, because since I met you, which was how long ago? Like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. You have sometimes methodically and sometimes by just like experimenting, trying things and see what happens, you've developed a whole way of thinking about your business's visual language. You've developed a visual language. You've developed specific uses for different ways of communicating visually. And well, that's all I'll say. I'll let you say the rest. But let's start talking about how you did that. So
I want to go back to the part you just said, which was that I've done it. I'm like, oh, I have.
You have.
Just to hear Amy say it means, oh, okay, I totally have done. Yes.
The teacher said so.
The teacher said so. Check, give me my
Star
gold star moments. Yes. That's really cool to hear.
I have such power.
That's just like, and I feel like I have though too. Like legitimately, I feel like through working with you, I mean, we've been working together for a year. It's coming up on a year, and
in various ways.
But pretty much whatever you offered, I was like, okay, let's do it.
I noticed that. I really like that.
But it's been, I feel like, there is this difference between folks who start a business to start a business and folks who start a business as a mechanism to achieve their vision.
Yeah.
And so that brings a bit of a challenge to me when I'm looking at like, how am I going to communicate this? Because my vision is in an iterative process, even for me. Like it's still growing and changing and getting clearer and also getting broader and more like just bigger, So I think for me, like I knew at the beginning of this year, that I could not do business the way that I was being told it needed to be done. I had to shift and find a different way to go about it that was going to bring this act of creating core into the work that I do, because articulating a vision and acting on that vision is an act of creation every single day, whether I'm doing an individual interaction or I'm creating social media stuff. And so I worked really hard to kind of, make it central and make it a regular practice, and build it into my schedule, but not in a way that was going to feel confining or like making it so routine that I was going to want to kick down the door or burn it down. Cause I'm an Aquarius. So if you put me in a box, I will kick the box and like totally get rid of it. And so that's kind of where I started. And started working with you about setting up prompts and figuring out ways to build that creative practice into my work. And what I ended up coming up with is at least 2 to 3 times a week, I have sections on my schedule that are specific creative times where I pull and I take a look at what do I feel like doing? Do I feel like working on strategy? Do I feel like working on visuals? Do I feel like working on writing? So I've got some variety within that. And then even within those, I have options of what to do. And when we did the group class that you offered, I created this big jar full of prompts. Like it's literally like I think it goes up to about here of prompts that I'll pull for myself and then I'll do something. Sometimes it's a mind map. Sometimes it's like for the next week, go take pictures of texture that you love, that you're attracted to, that whether you're walking down the street or, sitting down at dinner, and so that always has my brain like looking for things. And in doing so, no matter if I'm on vacation or like I'm working in my art journal, it started to just, I don't know, like gel that my language started coming clearer to me. And granted, we spent a lot of time talking about it too, like just working through like, what is it going to look like? And what was I attracted to? Go pull photos that actually are meaningful to you and see what the commonality is. And then take that commonality and go, do more. Yeah. And I
remember early on just looking at a whole bunch of photos you'd already taken, not even thinking about your brand necessarily. We looked at stuff in your sketchbook. We got like starting points for how you make and how your eye works and how your creative mind works. And then, over the course of that class, you developed all these assignments. So they're prompts, but they're open. Like go find textures, but they're not random. They're really connected to something you're already learning about your brand and about how your visual brand communicates.
I think so. And I think early on, I participated in a couple of the challenges that you offered where you know, I could start to see that pattern too. Like for myself, I could see the consistency. I could see the consistency in the colors even. That, so by the time we got to, I'm in the process of doing a rebrand, and Pluck with Purpose is going away, and we're standing up Dr. Jenn McCabe, and I already knew what the colors were going to be because they're literally my entire like Instagram feed, or, you know, and
merged.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, it did. But one thing that was difficult for me that I think you and I worked together to find a way around this was, I love words. Like words are important to me. They're you know, like the difference between character and integrity, like that difference really matters. And that specificity got me in so much trouble when I started looking at the visual language, because I would get lost in the specifics of the word and then not be able to go, okay, well, what would represent this? And so breaking those two things apart were critical. And I think that was a huge piece for me in getting the space to create the visual language separate from the language itself that you know, the words that I use or how I express some of the things.
Yes. Yes. And I think this is a good segue to showing people your Instagram feed, because that's one place. There's a few different places where your visual story is being told right now. And this is one specific way that you're doing it that I think will really help people understand what you're talking about. And this is a big one for all of us. I'm directing this to the audience now, not so much to you, Jen, because you figured this out in a major way and just described it. But your text and your images can communicate different things. They can complement each other, but they don't have to serve the same purpose. And it's better if they don't serve the same purpose. And your Instagram feed is one of my favorite examples of how text and image can resonate with each other and lend more meaning to each other without trying to do the same thing. Which automatically shows how limiting it can be to try to get them to do the same thing. Okay, so let me share your Instagram feed. Oh, and while I'm getting this set up, I forgot to say to everybody, there's a big long question and answer at the end here if we want it. So if we have enough questions. So as you are listening here and looking at these images, you can ask in the comments anything you like. To Jen, to me, anything about our conversation, about the images, anything you want. And we will look through them all at the end. Julie DeRosa, our studio wizard, who you can see on my little thumbnail screen there. Yay, hello. She is hanging out in Facebook, collecting all your questions and maybe answering quick little technical things and just being with you all while Jen and I talk. So please, you know, anytime in this conversation, put in your questions and we will find them